The reservation was for 8 o'clock at Marchand's. The kind of restaurant where senators whispered over burgundy and deals were sealed with handshakes worth more than most people earned in a lifetime. Victoria Marchand, yes, that Marchand, heiress to the defense contracting empire that had armed half the free world, sat across from her son, Adrian, watching him pick at seared scallops he'd barely touched. He was 16, drowning in private school malaise, and she'd carved out this rare evening from boardrooms and shareholder calls to connect, to remind him and maybe herself that money couldn't buy everything. She noticed the man 3 tables over because he was trying so hard not to be noticed. Mid-30s, threadbare jacket that had seen better years, hands weathered like he worked with them. His daughter, maybe 7, sat wide-eyed across from him, both of them studying the menu like it was written in code. The girl whispered something and he smiled, that particular smile parents wear when they're pretending everything is fine. Victoria had seen that smile before. 30 years ago, in a different life, before the inheritance, before the corporate armor. She'd worn it herself. The waiter approached their table with practiced deference, and Victoria watched the man's jaw tighten as he ordered carefully, doing math in his head. 1 appetizer to share. Water, no wine. The girl asked for pasta and he nodded, relief flickering across his face at her modest choice. Something twisted in Victoria's chest. Adrian was talking about a car he wanted, a Porsche some classmate had gotten for passing his learner's permit, and she heard herself agreeing without listening. Her attention had snagged on the pair across the room. The way the father cut his daughter's bread into small pieces. The way she giggled at something he said, utterly content despite the worn shoes and mended collar. Then the man's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and his entire body changed, shoulders snapping straight, that civilian casualness evaporating into something else entirely. Military bearing, instant and unmistakable. He excused himself, kissed his daughter's forehead and stepped toward the restroom, phone pressed to his ear. Victoria shouldn't have followed. She told herself she was heading to the powder room anyway, but that was a lie wealthy people tell themselves to justify curiosity. She caught fragments through the hallway. Affirmative. 7 minutes. I understand, sir, before he noticed her and straightened, conversation ending abruptly. Up close, she saw it. The faded tan line on his wrist where a watch had been. The posture that never fully relaxed. And when he moved past her, muttering an apology, she glimpsed something on his forearm beneath the pushed-up sleeve. Not a tattoo, a scar. Burn pattern, circular, precise. She knew that mark. Her father's company had manufactured the ejection seat handles that left exactly that signature, which meant this man, this single father counting pennies over pasta, had punched out of a burning aircraft at some point in his service. Victoria returned to her table, mind racing. Adrian was scrolling his phone, oblivious. The father had returned to his daughter, who was now drawing on her paper placemat with crayons the waiter had brought. Normal, peaceful, but Victoria's trained eye caught other details now. The way he sat angled toward the exit, the periodic scans of the room, casual but systematic, the controlled breathing of someone managing old trauma. She'd grown up around military men, had spent her 20s touring bases with her father, learning the business that would become her empire. She recognized the signs. Combat veteran, likely pilot given the ejection scar. And from the careful budgeting and civilian clothes that didn't quite fit his bearing, she guessed he was out now, struggling with whatever came after. The waiter appeared at her elbow. "Madam, the chef sends his compliments. Will there be anything else this evening?" Victoria made a decision that would, in ways she couldn't yet comprehend, change 3 lives forever. "Yes," she said quietly, pulling out her phone. "I need you to do something for me. That table over there, the father and daughter. I want their bill sent to me, discreetly, and I need you to find out his name from the reservation system." The waiter hesitated only a moment. Marchand money had that effect. "Of course, madam, right away." Adrian finally looked up. "Mom, are you even listening? I was telling you about the car." "I heard you, sweetheart." She touched his hand. "But I need you to look at something first." She gestured subtly toward the father and daughter. "What do you see?" Adrian shrugged. "Some guy and his kid." "Look closer, really look." Her son had the grace to try. After a moment, his expression shifted, teenage cynicism cracking slightly. I don't know, he looks tired, happy but tired. Why? Because that man is a veteran, and he's here trying to give his daughter a nice evening despite the fact that it's probably stretching his budget to breaking point. Do you understand what that means? That he's struggling. That he's still fighting, Victoria corrected gently. Just a different kind of battle, the kind nobody gives medals for. The waiter returned, leaning close. His name is Marcus Reeves, madam. The reservation was made 3 weeks ago. Birthday celebration for the young lady. Birthday. The word landed like ordnance. This wasn't just dinner. This was everything that father could give his daughter for her special day, and he'd planned it weeks in advance, probably saving every spare dollar. Victoria felt something she hadn't experienced in her carpeted boardrooms and shareholder meetings, a sense of purpose beyond profit margins. Marcus Reeves, she repeated softly. The name felt important, though she didn't yet know why. Across the restaurant, Marcus was helping his daughter Lily. Victoria would later learn open a small wrapped present. The girl's squeal of delight carried across the ambient conversation. A stuffed animal, a unicorn, probably from a discount store. But the way Lily clutched it to her chest, you'd think it was spun from gold. Adrian watched too, and for the first time in months, her son seemed to actually see something beyond his phone screen. "Mom, what are you going to do?" Victoria Marchand had built her reputation on decisive action. Her father had taught her that wealth was responsibility, power was stewardship, and resources were meant to be deployed strategically. But this wasn't business. This was something else entirely. "I don't know yet," she admitted, "but I'm going to find out who Marcus Reeves is and why a man with his bearing is eating here like it's his last meal." The waiter cleared their plates. Victoria's own entree sat half-finished, appetite lost to curiosity and something deeper recognition, maybe. She'd spent years insulated by money, by boards and quarterly reports. When had she last actually seen someone? Not as a potential asset or liability, but as a human being fighting battles she couldn't imagine. She pulled up her phone, fingers moving across the screen with practiced efficiency. 3 taps connected her to Richard Delacroix, her head of security and a retired Air Force colonel. He answered on the first ring. "Victoria, unusual time for a call. I need background on someone, discreetly. Name is Marcus Reeves, former military, I'm certain. Pilot probable, currently in the Los Angeles area. I need his service record, current employment status, and family situation." A pause. "This about business. This is about principle," she said and meant it. "How fast can you get me information?" "For you, tomorrow morning." "Make it tonight, Richard, I'll explain later." She ended the call and found Adrian watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Not judgment, not quite, maybe the beginning of understanding. "You're going to help him," Adrian said. It wasn't a question. "I'm going to understand him first," Victoria corrected. "Help implies charity, and charity is what you give to people who can't help themselves. I suspect Marcus Reeves is perfectly capable. He just needs an opportunity." "How do you know?" "Because men like that don't stop fighting. They just change battlefields." She watched as Marcus paid the bill cash, counted out carefully, and helped Lily into her jacket. The little girl was still clutching the unicorn, chattering happily about something. Marcus smiled at her, and in that smile Victoria saw exhaustion, love, determination, and pride wound so tightly together they were inseparable. They left through the main entrance, and Victoria found herself standing, abandoning all pretense of discretion. "Stay here," she told Adrian, and followed them out into the cooling Los Angeles evening. The valet stand was busy, expensive cars queuing under amber lights. Marcus and Lily walked past them all, heading toward the public lot 2 blocks down. Of course they did. Valet parking would be an unthinkable expense. Victoria should have turned back. Should have waited for Richard's report, approached this rationally, strategically. Instead, she found herself calling out, "Mr. Reeves." He turned, automatically placing himself between his daughter and a potential threat. That reaction alone confirmed everything Victoria had suspected. His eyes found hers gray, sharp, assessing, and she watched him place her. Wealth, power, danger of a different kind. Yes. His voice was careful, controlled. California accent underneath, but something else too. the flat affect of someone used to military communications. I'm Victoria Marchand. I was dining in the restaurant. I noticed you, and she paused. What exactly? What was she doing? I wanted to wish your daughter a happy birthday. Lily peeked around her father's leg, clutching the unicorn. Thank you, I'm 7 now. That's a big number. A very big number, Victoria agreed, crouching slightly to meet the girl's eyes. Then to Marcus, I also wanted to say thank you for your service. I recognized the signs. His expression closed down immediately, walls slamming into place. I don't need charity, ma'am. We're doing fine. I'm sure you are. That's not what this is about. Then what is it about? Victoria straightened, meeting his gaze directly. She negotiated billion-dollar contracts, faced down hostile boards, navigated corporate warfare that would have destroyed lesser executives. But this felt different. This felt real. It's about the fact that I watched you plan your daughter's birthday dinner like a military operation, counting every dollar and still making it perfect for her. It's about recognizing a pilot's ejection scar when I see one, because my father built the systems that left that mark. And it's about wondering why someone with your discipline and bearing is struggling when people with half your competence make 10 times your salary. Marcus's jaw tightened. You don't know anything about me. No, Victoria agreed. I don't, but I'd like to. And before you tell me again that you don't need charity, understand this. I don't do charity. I invest. In people, in potential, in competence that's being wasted because the world doesn't always match talent with opportunity. Lady, I don't know what you think you saw in there. I saw a fighter pilot who punched out of something catastrophic, survived, and is now trying to build a life for his daughter while probably working 3 jobs that don't appreciate what you're capable of. Am I close? The words hung in the cooling air. Behind them, Lowe's Angels traffic hummed its eternal song. Lily tugged her father's hand, confused by the tension she could sense but not understand. Marcus stared at Victoria for a long moment, and she watched calculations run behind his eyes, pride warring with practicality, suspicion fighting exhaustion. Finally, he spoke. You're persistent. It served me well. And if I said I'm not interested in whatever you're selling, then I'd respect that decision and wish you a good evening. But I'd also ask you to consider what I am selling, Mr. Reeves, because it's not pity and it's not a handout. It's a conversation. One conversation at a time and place of your choosing, where I explain what I do and you decide if there's anything in it worth your time. Your company builds weapons. It wasn't a question. He'd recognized the name. Among other things, we also build the systems that bring pilots home alive, like the ejection seat that saved your life. His hand moved unconsciously to his forearm, covering the scar through his jacket. That was a long time ago. Trauma doesn't work on a timeline, neither does talent. She pulled a card from her purse, extending it. Simple cardstock, embossed lettering. My personal number, not my office, not my assistant. Call me if you want to talk, or don't. Either way, I hope your daughter has a wonderful birthday. She turned to leave, then paused. And Mr. Reeves, your bill tonight was already covered. Consider it a birthday present from someone who understands that the hardest battles are the ones nobody sees. She walked back toward Marchand's before he could protest, before pride could turn into anger. Behind her, she heard Lily ask, "Daddy, who was that lady?" And Marcus's response, quiet but carrying, "Someone who just made things complicated, sweetheart." Victoria returned to find Adrian standing at the restaurant entrance, trying very hard to look like he hadn't been watching the entire exchange. "Well?" her son asked as they walked to where their car waited, the valet holding the door with practiced deference. "Well, what did you? I don't know. Fix it, make it better. Whatever you were trying to do." Victoria slid into the leather interior, Adrian following. As the driver pulled into traffic, she considered her son's question. "I don't know if I fixed anything. I might have just made his life harder. Pride is a complicated thing, especially for people who have sacrificed for others. But you gave him your number. Do you think he'll call?" Honestly, probably not. She watched the city lights blur past, expensive neighborhoods giving way to the stratified geography of Lowe's Angels' wealth and poverty existing blocks apart, separated by invisible borders that might as well be battlements. Men like Marcus Reeves don't ask for help easily. They're trained not to. Then why do it? Victoria smiled. Because sometimes the right thing is still worth doing even if it doesn't work out the way you hope. And because I want you to understand something, Adrian. Real strength isn't about having resources. It's about what you do with them when you have them and what you do without them when you don't. Her son was quiet for a moment, processing. Then, can I ask you something? Always. When you were my age, before the money got really big, were you ever scared? The question caught her off guard. She'd spent years presenting an image of absolute confidence, corporate armor that never cracked, but Adrian deserved better than performance. Terrified, she admitted. Every day. Your grandfather had expectations and I was drowning in them. I didn't know if I was smart enough, tough enough, capable enough to inherit what he'd built. And the only way through that fear was to prove it to myself more than anyone else. Is that why you work so hard? Why you're never home? The words were stated without accusation, just observation. Still, they landed like criticism. Partially, Victoria said carefully, but also because I genuinely love what I do. Building things, solving problems, creating opportunities, that's not work to me. That's purpose. The mistake I've made is forgetting that purpose needs to include the people I care about, not just the empire I'm building. So what happens now with Marcus Reeves? Now I wait and hope I didn't just scare away someone who could benefit from what I'm offering. Her phone buzzed. Richard Delacroix, right on schedule. She scanned his text, preliminary information, more detailed report to follow. What she saw made her breath catch. Captain Marcus Reeves, USAF. Call sign, Shepard. 2 tour flying A-10 Warthogs in Afghanistan. 3 distinguished flying crosses. Purple Heart. Shot down during close air support mission protecting ground convoy. Successful ejection despite catastrophic airframe damage. Medical retirement following recovery. Current employment, overnight security guard, part-time mechanic, weekend Uber driver. Daughter, Lily Reeves, age 7, mother deceased 3 years prior. No family support network. Eviction notice on current apartment, 2 months behind on rent. And there it was, the whole picture brutal in its completeness. A decorated combat pilot reduced to scraping by, raising his daughter alone, too proud or too traumatized or too exhausted to ask for the help he desperately needed. Mom, you okay? You look weird. Victoria realized her hands were shaking, not from fear but from fury. Fury at a system that could chew up someone like Marcus Reeves and spit him out without support. Fury at herself for not noticing sooner how many veterans were fighting this exact battle. Fury and something else, determination. I'm fine, she said, composing herself. I'm just realizing that I've been building the wrong things. Weapons and profit margins and shareholder value when I should have been building something that actually matters. That sounds dramatic. It is dramatic. Sometimes drama is appropriate. She typed a response to Richard. Need full service record by morning. Also employment opportunities at Marchand Industries suitable for aviation background. And Richard, find out who's holding his lease. I want options. 3 days passed. Victoria threw herself into research with the intensity she usually reserved for corporate acquisitions. She learned about veteran unemployment rates, transition support failures, PTSD treatment gaps. She read Marcus's after-action reports, declassified summaries that painted a picture of a pilot who'd repeatedly put himself in danger to protect ground forces. She found the citation for his final mission. Captain Reeves maintained attack run despite catastrophic airframe damage and personal injury, ensuring enemy position was neutralized before successful ejection. His actions directly saved 12 American lives and prevented enemy breakthrough of defensive position. 12 lives. She let that number sink in. Marcus Reeves had saved 12 people, had ejected from a burning aircraft, had recovered and rebuilt, and was now working 3 jobs to give his daughter a decent childhood. And the world's response was apparently eviction notices and struggle. Adrian noticed the shift in his mother's focus. She worked from home more often, took calls about veteran programs, started drafting proposals that had nothing to do with quarterly earnings. On the 3rd evening, over takeout Chinese that Victoria barely touched, he asked, "Are you having a midlife crisis? Because if you are, I should probably know so I can prepare." Victoria laughed despite herself. Would that be so terrible? I mean, most moms buy sports cars or get weird haircuts. You're apparently trying to fix the entire veteran employment system. It's very on brand. I prefer to think of it as enlightened self-interest. There are thousands of Marcus Reeveses out there competent, disciplined, trained in high-stress decision-making. That's exactly the kind of talent my company should be recruiting. I've just been too blind to see it. So this is about business. This is about correcting a mistake. Business is just the mechanism. Her phone rang. Unknown number, local area code. She almost let it go to voicemail, but something made her answer. Victoria Marchand. Silence on the other end. Then carefully, "This is Marcus Reeves. You said to call if I wanted to talk." Victoria's heart rate kicked up, though she kept her voice level. "Mr. Reeves, thank you for calling. Is now a good time? Lily's asleep. I have maybe 30 minutes before I need to head to my night shift." 30 minutes. The man was calling her between putting his daughter to bed and working overnight security. "I'll be concise then. Have you given any thought to what I said?" "I've thought about little else, honestly. And I still don't understand what you want from me." "I want to offer you a job." Silence. Then, "Ma'am, with all respect, I don't need pity employment. I'm doing fine. You're working 3 jobs, you're 2 months behind on rent, and according to my information, you haven't had more than 4 hours of consecutive sleep in the last 6 months. That's not fine, Captain Reeves. That's survival mode, and you're too talented to waste your life just surviving." The use of his rank had been deliberate. She heard his sharp intake of breath. "You had me investigated. I had you researched. There's a difference. I don't make offers without understanding who I'm making them to. Your service record is exemplary. Your current situation is unconscionable, and I have a proposition that addresses both facts." "I'm listening." Victoria leaned back in her chair, Adrian watching from across the room with undisguised interest. This was it, the moment where she either earned Marcus's trust or lost it forever. Marchand Industries builds defense systems, but we also consult on aerospace safety, train military pilots on new technologies, and develop simulation programs for combat scenarios. I need someone who understands both the technical and human side of military aviation. Someone who's been there, who knows what actually works versus what looks good on paper. You have dozens of retired officers who could do that. I have dozens of officers who left the military on their own terms, with full pensions and consultant fees. What I don't have is someone who knows what it's like to actually need the equipment to work, to have their life depend on systems I build. You punched out of a burning and lived because the ejection seat performed exactly as designed. That makes you the perfect person to evaluate whether our new systems are actually worth a damn. That's a consultant position. I don't have the credentials for that level of, "You have a distinguished flying cross and practical experience." That's the only credential that matters. The rest is corporate nonsense I can work around. Another pause. She could almost hear him thinking, pride warring with desperate need. "What's the compensation?" Victoria named a figure, heard his sharp exhale. That's more than I made as an O3 with flight pay. That's market rate for aerospace consulting with your experience level, plus benefits, health insurance, and flexible hours so you can be present for your daughter. I'm not doing you a favor, Captain. I'm hearing the best person for the job." "Why me?" "Really. There are thousands of retired pilots. Because 3 days ago I watched you plan your daughter's birthday like an operation, making it perfect despite impossible odds. That's the kind of problem solving and dedication I need. And because I'm tired of building systems for the lowest bidder when I should be building them for the people who actually use them." Silence stretched. Traffic sounds filtered through his end of the call. He was probably in his car, parked somewhere, stealing minutes before his shift. "I need to think about this." "Of course, but Mr. Reeves, while you're thinking, know that my offer stands regardless of your financial situation. I've already had my people contact your landlord. Your rent is current as of this afternoon, 3 months paid forward. Consider it a signing bonus whether you accept the position or not." "You had no right to." His voice was sharp, anger breaking through. "You're absolutely correct. I had no right. I did it anyway because your daughter deserves a stable home while you make your decision. Be angry if you need to, but don't let pride hurt Lily." She heard his breathing, harsh and controlled. "You don't fight fair." "I fight to win, Captain." I thought you'd understand that. Despite everything, she heard the hint of a laugh. You're either crazy or the most manipulative person I've ever met. Why not both? Look, I'm not trying to control you or take away your agency. I'm trying to offer you the same opportunity you gave those 12 soldiers when you stayed in that burning aircraft. A chance to survive and maybe do something meaningful afterward. The choice is entirely yours. Another long silence. When Marcus spoke again, his voice was quieter, stripped of defensiveness. My daughter asks me every night when things will get better, when we can stay somewhere permanently, when I'll be home more. And I tell her soon, but I don't know if I believe it anymore. Then you show up out of nowhere and suddenly there's possibility where there wasn't before. That's terrifying. Change is always terrifying, Victoria said gently, but staying in a burning aircraft is fatal. Sometimes you have to punch out and trust the equipment, even when every instinct screams not to. Is that supposed to be a metaphor? It's supposed to be truth. You trusted an ejection seat my father's company built. Now I'm asking you to trust that I mean what I'm saying. Silence again. Then, I need 48 hours to talk to Lily to process this, to make sure I'm thinking clearly. Take the time you need. My offer stands. And if I say no, then I respect that decision and you never hear from me again. But the rent is still paid, no strings attached. Consider it paying forward the debt I owe to every person my company's equipment has kept alive. That's a pretty big debt. I'm beginning to realize that. She heard movement on his end, an engine starting. I have to go. My shift starts in 20 minutes. Be safe, Captain. Haven't been a captain in 3 years. Some ranks are earned permanently. I think you'll find that's true. The call ended. Victoria set down her phone and found Adrian watching her with an expression of bemused respect. That was intense, her son said. That was necessary, and now we wait. Do you think he'll say yes? Victoria considered. In her business dealings, she could predict outcomes with reasonable accuracy. People were motivated by profit, fear, ambition, security factors that could be analyzed and leveraged. But Marcus Reeves wasn't a business decision. He was a man standing at a crossroads, choosing between pride and pragmatism, between the familiar struggle and uncertain opportunity. I think, she said slowly, that he'll make whatever decision is best for his daughter, and I think that's exactly the kind of person I want working for me. Adrian nodded, then asked the question Victoria had been avoiding. What if this doesn't work? What if you're wrong about him? Then I learn from it and try to do better next time. But I don't think I'm wrong. I've spent my career evaluating risk and potential. Marcus Reeves is the best investment I've made in years. That's cold, calling him an investment. No, Victoria corrected. Calling him an investment is honest. It means I believe in him enough to stake my reputation and resources on his success. That's the opposite of pity. Her son seemed to consider this, teenage certainty giving way to something more nuanced. I think I'm starting to understand why you're good at what you do. Oh, yeah, you see, people like problems to solve, but good problems, the kind worth solving. Victoria smiled. I'll take that as a compliment, even if you didn't mean it as one. The next 2 days crawled by with agonizing slowness. Victoria threw herself into preparations, building a position that would actually utilize Marcus's skills while providing the flexibility his life required. She drafted proposals, cleared budget allocations, and prepared responses to the inevitable board questions about hearing practices. Richard Delacroix called on the second day. You're causing ripples, Victoria. People are asking questions about this veteran initiative you're suddenly pushing. Let them ask. The questions they should be asking is why we weren't doing this already. Fair point. For what it's worth, I think what you're doing is right. We've failed too many good people. We have. I'm just trying to correct one failure at a time. And if Reeves turns you down, then I find another way to help and another veteran to offer opportunity to. This doesn't end with one person, Richard. It can't. She meant it. Whether Marcus accepted or not, Victoria had seen something that couldn't be unseen, the gap between what veterans gave and what they received. Her company, her resources, her influence, all of it was wasted if she wasn't addressing that. The call came on the evening of the second day. Same unknown number. Victoria answered before the second ring. Mr. Reeves, I need to know something before I give you my answer. His voice was steady, controlled. She'd expected this. Ask. Why now? Why me? You've been running this company for years. You've probably walked past 100 veterans struggling to make ends meet. What made you decide to act on that particular night? It was the right question, the question that cut through to motivation and revealed whether this was genuine or performance. Victoria respected him more for asking. Honest answer: I don't know. Maybe it was seeing my son take everything for granted while your daughter was thrilled with a discount store unicorn. Maybe it was recognizing that ejection scar and realizing that my family's fortune was built on moments exactly like the one that marked you. Or maybe I'm just tired of building things that kill people and wanted to build something that gives life instead. That's remarkably candid. You asked for truth. I'm giving it. I don't have a neat explanation that makes me look noble. I saw something that bothered me and I have the resources to do something about it, so I am. It's that simple and that complicated. She heard him breathe, considering. Then, I have conditions. Victoria felt hope kindle. Conditions meant negotiation. Negotiation meant he was seriously considering. Name them. First, I'm not a charity case. I work for what I earn, and if I'm not performing at the level you need, you fire me without guilt or hesitation. Second, my daughter comes first. Always, if there's a conflict between work and her needs, she wins. Third, I want this to mean something. I don't want a make-work position. If I'm consulting on safety systems, I want my input to actually matter. Agreed on all 3 points. Anything else? Yeah, I want to help set up a program for other veterans. If this works for me, it should work for more people. I don't want to be the exception, I want to be the start. Victoria smiled, even though he couldn't see it. Captain Reeves, you just went from being an employee to being a collaborator. When can you start? I need 2 weeks to close out my current jobs properly. I don't burn bridges. I wouldn't expect anything less. I'll have HR send over the paperwork. Welcome to Marchand Industries. I'm still not sure this is real. It's real, and Mr. Reeves, thank you for trusting the equipment. He laughed, genuine and surprised. I guess I am, aren't I? Punching out again, hopping the systems work. They will. I'll make certain of it. After the call ended, Victoria sat in her home office, Lowe's angels glittering below through floor-to-ceiling windows. Adrian appeared in the doorway, backpack slung over one shoulder, heading out to some evening plan with friends. He said yes, her son asked. He said yes. Good, that's really good, Mom. He lingered, unusual for a teenager perpetually in motion. Can I ask you something? Always. Do you think you would have done this before that night if you hadn't seen him in the restaurant? Victoria considered lying, considered the comfortable fiction that she'd always been this aware, this engaged. But Adrian deserved better. No, I don't think I would have. I was too insulated, too focused on the business. It took seeing someone specifically, seeing the contrast between what we have and what others are fighting for to break through my own barriers. So what changed? I did, or started to anyway. That's the thing about growth, Adrian, it's not a switch you flip. It's a series of choices, each one building on the last. I saw Marcus Reeves and his daughter and I chose to pay attention instead of looking away. Then I chose to investigate instead of forgetting. Then I chose to act instead of just feeling bad about it. Each choice made the next one easier. Her son nodded slowly, processing. I think I get it, it's like. Being rich isn't the problem. What you do with it is. Exactly. Wealth is just a tool. Tools can build or destroy, help or harm. The responsibility is in how we use them. That's pretty deep for a Tuesday night. Despite everything, Victoria laughed. Get out of here, go be a teenager. Do irresponsible things that I can ground you for later. Love you, Mom. Love you too. Be home by 11. Adrian left and Victoria returned to her computer, pulling up the files she'd been assembling. Marcus Reeves was the first step, but only the first. She began drafting a proposal for the board, Veteran Integration Initiative, leveraging military expertise for corporate excellence. It would be a hard sell. Boards cared about profit margins and shareholder value, not social programs. But Victoria had data and retention rates for veteran employees, leadership qualities, crisis management experience. She could make the business case while doing the right thing. Her phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Lily wanted me to tell you thank you. She's excited about not having to move. Also, she's named the unicorn Victoria. Hope that's okay. Victoria felt something crack in her chest, emotion she usually kept carefully controlled. She typed back, that's more than okay. Tell Lily that Victoria the unicorn is very honored. Then added, "And Marcus, thank you for giving me the chance to do this. I know trust is earned. I'll work to deserve yours." His response came quickly. "You already did. See you in 2 weeks, ma'am." Military courtesy that signaled respect, hierarchy, and maybe the beginning of real collaboration. Victoria saved her files, closed her laptop, and allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. One life changed. Maybe two, counting Lily. Potentially thousands more if the program she was building worked the way she hoped. Not bad for an evening that had started with overpriced scallops and teenage complaints about cars. She stood, walked to the window, looked out over the city. Somewhere out there, Marcus Reeves was probably finishing another shift, probably exhausted, but maybe allowing himself to hope that things might actually get better. And Victoria Marchand, billionaire heiress, defense contractor, corporate warrior, felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Purpose that had nothing to do with profit and everything to do with being, finally, the person her father had raised her to be. Not just rich. Not just successful, but worthy of the resources she'd been given. The city lights blurred slightly. She blinked, surprised to find tears tracking down her face. Not sadness, something else entirely. Relief, perhaps, or recognition that she'd been lost without knowing it and had just found her way back to something real. Tomorrow she'd return to boardrooms and balance sheets, but tonight she'd helped one person. And sometimes that was exactly enough. 2 weeks later, Marcus Reeves walked into Marchand Industries headquarters for his first day. Victoria had arranged to meet him personally, wanting to set the right tone. She found him in the lobby, freshly barbered, wearing a suit that was probably borrowed but pressed with military precision. Lily was with him. Apparently childcare had fallen through, and he'd called ahead apologetically to explain. "Absolutely bring her," Victoria had said. "I want to meet the young lady who inspired all this anyway." Now, watching them approach across the marble lobby, Victoria saw what she'd missed in the restaurant. The way Marcus moved with unconscious grace.